Hi folks, this is Dave Berkowitz from Value Line Partners in Red Bank. Did you know that according to the American Psychological Association, money is the number one stressor for 3 out of 4 American adults? Did you know that Harris polling found that the same 3 out of 4 adults are afraid even just to talk with a financial advisor? And did you know that according to a new report from mutual fund firm BlackRock, the average baby boomer plans on having $45,500 a year in retirement income. But the average retirement portfolio will provide only $9,129 per year, $37,000 short of her goal and expectations. Now, imagine you have a financial advisor who realizes that, like most people, your financial life probably isn't in perfect order. Statements end up in drawers and at the bottom of piles. Insurance policies are buried who knows where. Sometimes we even lose track of old accounts. Now imagine that the advisor gets you organized, giving you an organized file box, like this one, with hanging folders for each category of financial information, including wills and trusts, insurance policies, bank accounts, and investment accounts. Also, those important documents have been scanned into an electronic vault, so you and your advisors have immediate and permanent access. Then imagine that you know how much income your savings and investments will produce in retirement, or that you know if and when you can leave your current job and do something you have always wanted to do. Imagine getting control over your financial stress. You don't have to imagine it. We deliver it every week. In fact, scores of local families have partnered with our firm, Value Line Partners, to get organized and to get peace about their financial future. Watch this webinar to get a feel for some of the questions you need to begin to ask. Thanks.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Jessie Campbell and I'm with Value Lines Partners. Value Lines Partners is a fee-only investment advisory founded by David Berkowitz. Mr. Berkowitz has over 30 years of experience with finance and is one of the pioneers of value-based management. He holds an MBA from the Columbia University Graduate School of Business and a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Columbia University's Columbia College. Prior to founding Value Lines Partners, Mr. Berkowitz was the Chief Operating Officer and head trader for a hedge fund called Woodward and Associates. Following his work for the hedge fund, Berkowitz worked for Stern Stewart & Co. as a corporate finance consultant. Today he is here to help you get started in thinking about a retirement investment plan.
Thank you, Jesse. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for listening today. My name is David Berkowitz, and I'm the Chief Investment Officer at Value Line Partners. We are a money management firm in Red Bank, New Jersey, and we think of ourselves as unique because we like to think of ourselves as the antidote for conventional wisdom. Conventional financial advice says stocks of great companies are too risky for retirement portfolios. We say that the real risk is not earning enough with low bank interest rates and then running out of money. It's my pleasure to share with you today some insights and information I've learned about retirement income planning. If you're listening, you're probably thinking ahead to retirement and wondering how you're going to replace the income you'll need to meet your expenses after the paychecks stop coming in. So over the next hour or so, we're going to talk about some possible approaches you can take to generate the retirement income you'll need. This seminar is titled Life After Work because retirement income planning really is all about creating a good life for yourself after you leave your primary job. It doesn't mean you won't necessarily work. In fact, many baby boomers are planning to continue working in some capacity after they leave their main job. But hopefully the work you do in retirement won't feel like work. Work is the thing you're getting away from. Life is what you're moving towards. If ever there was a time to plan, this is it. Once you leave your primary occupation and start depending on multiple sources of income in retirement, you want to make sure that the income lasts. No one wants to go back to work at age 80 because they didn't plan right. So it's really important to have a plan. A retirement income plan helps you determine how much income you'll need, where that income will come from, when you start taking Social Security, whether you will work or not, and how to manage withdrawals from your retirement and investment accounts in order to have a sustainable lifestyle throughout retirement. Recent research shows that confidence in a comfortable retirement has increased, reflecting the general improvement in the economy over the last 6 or 7 years. If you play your cards right, you'll be able to retire with confidence and not worry about your income sources drying out. And in this 2015 Retirement Confidence Survey, you can see what pre-retirees expect in terms of major and minor income sources compared to actual income sources in retirement. These income sources include Social Security, employment earnings, investments, and pension plans. For example, Social Security is an expected major source of income for 30% of workers who haven't reached retirement yet, and an actual major source of income for over 60% of retirees. So Social Security tends to play a bigger role in retirement income than many people realize before they retire. Then, 73% of people expect to work and earn income at least on part-time basis after retiring. However, only 25% of retirees actually add work earnings to their retirement income. Sometimes expectations don't match the reality of your finances post-retirement. So it's crucial to create and follow a detailed retirement strategy that leaves little up to chance. The first part of retirement income planning is to step back and imagine your life. How will things be different after you leave your main job? How do you want your life to be? Where will you live? What will you do? How long will you live? And what surprises does life hold? For some pre-retirees, the first consideration is where they will live. Not everybody changes their residence at retirement, but a lot of people do. If you're not tied to a job, you can be free to live anywhere. Perhaps you'd like to live close to your children and grandchildren. Maybe you'd like to downsize so that affordability will be a key consideration. If you plan to work or operate a business, you'll want to think about areas with the right employment or business opportunity. If you plan to do a lot of travel, you may want to live near an airport. And then there are the usual general preferences, such as climate, culture, and recreational opportunities. Where you end up living will have an impact on your retirement budget, so this is one of the first questions you'll want to consider. If you're not working anymore, how will you fill your time? From a financial perspective, daily activities fall into one of two categories: income-generating activities and expense-generating activities. If you work or run a profitable business, you'll be generating income from your daily activities. On the other hand, if you're not working, you'll need to fill your time doing something. Unless you plan to take walks and read library books all day, you may end up spending money on travel, hobbies, and entertainment. There's nothing wrong with this. You'll just have to factor these expenses into your budget. And of course, if you plan to start a new business, don't forget that it may not be profitable right at the beginning. Count your business startup activities as expense-generating activities until it becomes profitable. And be sure to factor these into your budget. Your life expectancy will determine how long your money needs to last. If we all knew the answer to this question, retirement planning would be really easy. Unfortunately, we have to plan for the worst case scenario, which means assuming we'll live to age 95 or 100. Of course, if we die before then, it means we could have lived it up a little bit more. We could have spent more money. But what if we don't? Having some life left at the end of your money means your retirement plan failed. But you won't know that until it's too late. So don't rely on the average life expectancy for your retirement income plan. Be safe and assume you'll live to 100, just like George Burns. Unexpected events can derail best laid plans for a successful retirement. Of course, if you knew the surprises life held in store for you, they wouldn't be surprises. But part of retirement income planning is taking a look at your life and the world around you and gauging what might happen to mess up your plan. Health is a big issue for retirees. If you have Medicare and a supplemental policy, many of your healthcare expenses will be covered, except for premiums and some co-payments, of course. But the biggest concern is long-term care. Ironically, it's the healthiest people who are most likely to need it. If you live so long that the infirmities of natural aging prohibit you from performing activities of daily life, you'll need some kind of nursing care in your old age. Surprises can also come from family members. Whether it's caring for aging parents or taking boomerang children back into the home, you may need to be prepared for unexpected expenditures of time and or money. The economy always seems to be full of surprises. Stock market fluctuations could cause your investment portfolio to decline in value. Interest rate changes could affect the value of your bonds, and inflation is always a big threat to retirees. After the financial crisis of 2008, we now know that some economic forces cannot be predicted in advance. That's why you have to be ready for anything. And when I say anything, I mean floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, forest fires, anything. Make sure your insurance is paid up and your disaster kit is in place. How much income will you need in retirement? Do you want the lazy answer or the right answer? The lazy answer is about 80% of your current living expenses. This assumes you will no longer be funding your retirement plans and will save on the expenses associated with working, such as transportation and meals out. But the more accurate way to estimate your retirement income needs is to set up a budget as if you were already retired. This is where the answers to those questions come into play. If you know where you'll be living and whether or not your mortgage will be paid off, you can more accurately estimate your housing costs in retirement. Do this for every category using today's dollar, but don't sweat it out at first. These could be just ballpark figures, and get yourself going. Now, identify your potential sources of income. Here are the four main sources. 1, Social Security. 2, pensions, if you have any. Income from work, if you're going to work part-time or full-time in retirement. And asset income, which is the income from your investments. What's so different about retirement compared to working full-time in your primary occupation is that you have to manage all these income sources. No longer can you count on direct deposit of a paycheck that is high enough to meet all your income needs. Each of these income sources has different characteristics, and it's important to keep these in mind when you're arranging all your sources of income in retirement. Social Security keeps up with inflation and is guaranteed for life. Once it starts, you don't have to think about it very much. But deciding when to start is a major decision for pre-retirees. We'll talk more about that in a minute. If you're one of the few lucky people still entitled to a pension, that income will also be guaranteed for life, but pensions generally are not adjusted for inflation. So as your expenses go up, you will have to fill in from somewhere else. Maybe you plan to work during retirement. Depending on what kind of work you'll be able to do, or if you own your own business, your income will either be fixed or variable. Do keep in mind that this income will not last forever. At some point, you'll want to hang it up for good. So you might want to stash some of your earnings into savings for when that day comes. And then there's asset income. This includes the withdrawals you take from investment accounts, retirement accounts, savings accounts, rental properties, or any other assets that you might own. This is the trickiest part of retirement income planning. The income may be fixed or variable, and you must actively manage it to make sure it lasts throughout your lifetime. Of course, that's where companies like us come in. What will your retirement income pie look like? Here's what it looks like for the average retiree. About 35% comes from Social Security, 34% comes from earnings in retirement, 17% comes from pensions, and 11% from asset income or your investment. If the average Social Security check is about $14,000 per year, a little over $1,000 a month, this means the average retiree has a total income of about $40,000. Earnings account for about $13,600, pensions for $6,800, and asset income about $4,400. This is the average, though, mind you. It is not likely to represent any one person's pie. So for low-income people, Social Security represents the vast majority of their income, 83% as depicted here. For the highest quintile, Social Security represents only about 16%. The bulk of high-income retirees' income is from work. That's probably why they have such high incomes. So you see, a lot of retirement income planning is deciding how you want to live and whether or not you want to work. If you can get by on Social Security, you won't need to bother with any of these other sources of income. On the other hand, if Social Security won't be enough for you, and if you're one of the many people who won't get a pension, you'll need to rely primarily on earnings from work and asset income. If you have sufficient assets that you don't need to work, you have made it. You might still work for the fun of it, but your primary income source will be your investments. Okay, let's look at each of these income sources in more detail. Lots of people like to start with Social Security because it's a predefined amount of income. Once you turn 62, your Social Security benefit is calculated based on your earnings history. Before you turn 62, the Social Security Administration estimates your benefit, assuming your present earnings will continue. To find out your benefit estimates, you can refer to your latest annual statement from the Social Security Administration or go online to their retirement estimator, which taps into the Social Security Administration's earnings database to estimate your benefit based on your past earnings. The big question with Social Security is when you start. As you probably know, you can start as early as age 62, but if you do that, your benefit will be reduced for life. The longer you delay the start of your benefits, the longer you delay the start of when you start getting money, up to age 70, the higher your benefit will be. Now, if you start early, you'll get more checks, but they'll be smaller. If you start later, you'll get fewer checks, but they'll be bigger. So the classic Social Security analysis is the break-even age. At what age will the total from the fewer higher checks exceed the total from the smaller check? Generally, the break-even age is about 78. So if you expect to live longer than 78, you should delay Social Security to age 70. You should also delay if you're married and expect either of you or your spouse to live longer than 78. However, another way to look at Social Security is for the income it can provide in your old age. Here, you're looking at Social Security as a kind of insurance policy in case you live a really long time. For example, if your age 66 benefit, also called your primary insurance amount, or PIA, is $2,000, your monthly income at age 85 will be, adjusted for inflation, $2,992 if you start Social Security at 62, or $5,265 if you start at 70. Big difference. Many people are not used to looking at the long-term effect of Social Security, claiming decisions made in their 60s. But I'm trying to get you all to thinking long-term as you put together your retirement income plan. And the reason for that is because most people don't realize that a two-person household in retirement needs to have income last between 30 and 35 years if you retire at 65 or age 70. That's living to 95 to 100. At least one of you probably will. The big question here is whether or not you'll get a pension. Most employers have abandoned their company-sponsored pension plans because they were costing too much. But if you're one of the lucky ones, you have some homework to do. Find out when you're entitled to your pension. What age do you become eligible for your pension? How much will it be? And what your distribution options are. Sometimes it's better to take it all as an annuity. Other times it's better to take it as a lump sum and roll it into an IRA so you can manage the investments yourself or hire a good investment manager. If you need help analyzing your pension distribution options, we can help with that, and I love to do it for anybody, even people that aren't clients, so I can introduce our company and you can introduce yourselves to me. By the way, we're not counting 401k plans as pensions. Strictly speaking, pensions generate monthly income for life, and the company assumes the longevity risk, unless you opt out for some lump sum. 401k plans are more like investment accounts because you are putting your own money into them and are responsible for choosing the investments and managing the withdrawals when the time comes. More and more people are planning to work during retirement. I suppose you could then question the word retirement for this time of life in the first place, but often the work takes on a different form. If you plan to keep working at your present job, you aren't really retiring. You're just delaying retirement. And that is a very good decision for many, many people. A few more years of work now will add to your financial security, boost your savings, and shorten your drawdown period. So keep at it if your work isn't too terrible and brings in a good paycheck. But once you leave your main job, there are several work options available to you. Some retirees become consultants, converting their former employers into clients and working according to their own schedule. Others launch a whole new career or business and throw themselves into their work even more than before. Still others start slowing down, working a little less in their primary occupation, or finding an easy job with low stress. It's always better if work decisions can be made without regard to finances. After all, this is your chance to switch careers and do something you really enjoy. But after looking at your retirement income pie, you may find that there's not enough income from other sources. This means you may be basing your work decisions on how much income it will generate. And remember what I mentioned earlier. You probably won't want to work all the way to the end of your life. At some point, you'll want to stop. Maybe you'll want to work fewer years at a higher income, even if it's work you don't enjoy very much. Or if you find work you really like that doesn't pay very much, if it isn't too physically demanding, you'll be able to continue it for many years. These are all the things to think about when putting together a retirement income plan. Now we come to the most interesting part of retirement income planning, and the part that most people think of right away: how to create an income stream from your retirement and investment accounts. You'll be integrating this with your other income sources. For example, if you retire in your 60s but want to delay Social Security to age 70, you'll need to take some withdrawals from your retirement investment accounts to meet your living expenses until Social Security starts. Contrary to what you might think, it can actually pay off to start drawing down your IRAs and investment accounts early in order to delay Social Security, so you get those fewer but bigger checks. That's because those 8% annual delayed credits that you get from delaying Social Security are really very, very valuable. If you keep working for a while, you won't need to draw as much from your retirement and investment accounts, and this will give you more of a cushion later on. So all of these things are interrelated. In the end, the big question is, how much do you need to draw from your personal assets, and when? There are a number of possible approaches to drawing down personal assets in retirement. The classic approach is to live off the interest. This is what the majority of my clients come in and tell me. We want to take something very conservative in investing because we need to live off our income, our interest. But as most of you know, that's not a viable strategy any longer, because interest rates are either non-existent or after tax are way too low. Another one is to invest differently for mandatory versus discretionary expense. And still a third is the so-called 4% rule. And finally, there's the bucket approach. Let's look at each one of these. Living off the interest is the classic approach to retirement income. It's what your parents probably did, and it's probably what they told you that you're going to need to do. You invest your savings in income-generating investments like bonds or dividend-paying stocks, and you spend only the income generated by the investments. You don't touch the principal. It used to be believed that once you dipped into principal, you were doomed to running out of money. Then the high inflation years of the 1970s changed all that. People whose bonds were kicking off fixed income and had a hard time meeting their expenses because of inflation, which were going up every year. In any case, today's low interest rate environment makes it hard to live off the interest, or impossible to live off the interest, because it requires a lot of principal. You need millions and millions of dollars to generate a decent income off that terrible low interest rate. So this is the approach that is somewhat passé today. Some people love the idea of knowing that their mandatory expenses, like their health insurance premiums or their rent or their mortgage, if there is one, will be covered no matter what. They don't mind cutting back on vacation as long as they know they'll be able to pay for rent or mortgage or utilities or food, like I said. So another approach to retirement income planning is to arrange for a guaranteed source of income, like Social Security or a pension or a guaranteed investment, to pay for the mandatory expenses. Then you invest the assets that will be used for discretionary expenses, like travel and entertainment and vehicles that offer growth potential or inflation protection. So if the investments don't work out, or you're haven't saved enough, then you can always cut back on the discretionary stuff, but you have a guaranteed income source for the mandatory stuff. The 4% rule has received a lot of media attention because it's so quick and easy to understand. Simply put, in the first year you retire, you take 4% out of your retirement and investment accounts. It doesn't matter how much your investments earn that year. If you start with $1 million, your first withdrawal is $40,000. This could come from interest, dividends, or capital gains. Then next year, you increase that amount by the rate of inflation. So if inflation is 3%, your next withdrawal is $41,200 the next year. Again, it doesn't matter how much your portfolio earns that year. On the day you retire, you set your withdrawal amount and increase it every year by the rate of inflation. This idea came from some studies done in the 1990s that went back over 30 years, going back to 30-year time periods going back to 1926, and determined that if 50% of the assets were fully invested in stocks and 50% in bonds, the 4% withdrawal rate had zero chance of failure. So it has become somewhat of a standard for retirement income planning. However, it does have its critics. Some people say that it doesn't let you spend enough. If the markets do very well, you're not allowed to take out more, so you end up leaving a lot to your kids. I guess the kids would be happy about that. Other critics say that the time periods tested were happy days for the U.S. economy, and that going forward, the markets may not do so well. The withdrawal plan can be somewhat hard to stick to, since most people want to take out more when their investments are doing really well, and less when they're not. It's hard to take out the prescribed amount if your investments are down 10 to 20%. On the other hand, you may have to in order to meet your expenses, especially if costs are up. Inflation. Another problem with this approach in today's world is that 50% investment in bonds. There is no reason, as I said at the beginning, that people have to invest 50-50 or 60% in bonds and 40% in stocks. There is no reason for that, and we specialize in managing portfolios of stocks of good companies directly, so people can meet their withdrawal rates. With this bucket approach, though, you earmark different accounts for different needs and invest separately for each. One popular way to do this is to arrange the buckets by time horizon. Any money that you will need within 5 years is placed in one bucket and invested very conservatively, say in cash. So there's no worry that your investments will be down in value at the time you need the money. So you basically figure out how much money you'll need over the next 5 years to meet living expenses and put that money in the first bucket. Amounts over that are placed in the next two buckets, one for 5 to 10 years out and the other for more than 10 years out. As you draw down assets from the first bucket, you replenish them with withdrawals from the second bucket. So you always have 5 years worth of expenses in the first bucket. Because the second and third year buckets have longer time horizons, you can invest them more aggressively for growth or inflation protection. Another way to arrange your buckets is according to your goals. For example, you might put a certain amount of money into the vacation bucket so you'll be sure to have it available when you're ready to take the world cruise, for instance. Another good bucket to have is your emergency fund. In case the water heater breaks or the car needs repairs, some people add up all the money they are likely to need for healthcare expenses in retirement and put that in a separate bucket, for instance. And the same for long-term care. There are many different ways to arrange your buckets. It just depends on what works best for you. For most of my clients, they just have two buckets. One bucket is invested in income-earning assets like stocks of great companies, and the other bucket is invested for 3 years of living expenses in retirement. And these are only people in retirement. Outside of retirement, we use the bucket approach, say, for college expenses that might be coming up. We make sure that those are in cash, in FDIC accounts, and then we invest the rest in stocks of good companies. Well, the best thing to do, though, is to sit down and talk about your situation and let me make some recommendations based on your goals and resources. Okay, now let's look at the pros and cons of each approach for drawing retirement income. Live off the interest is very simple. Just invest in interest or dividend paying securities and only spend the income after tax thrown off by those investments. The downside is that in today's low interest environment, you won't be drawing very much income. Also, most fixed income investments don't offer inflation protection. That's why they're called fixed income. So as your expenses rise in the years ahead, your income will not go up. You might find yourself having to evade principal. One way around this is to start out with sufficiently large amount that you don't need all the income for spending, so any excess can be reinvested for the future. But again, at today's low interest rates. It would require a rather large sum to generate the income you need. Mandatory versus discretionary approach is very comforting for a lot of people. When your basic living expenses are guaranteed in some way, you can be assured of staying in your home and not starving. If times get tough and you're not able to take as many vacations as you'd like, it's a small price to pay in order to be assured that your basic expenses will be met. One difficulty with the mandatory versus discretionary method is the complexity of vehicles offered guaranteed income, not counting Social Security and pension. Some of these vehicles carry very high fees like annuities, so you have to shop really carefully. Also, the discretionary side will fluctuate in value. An advantage of the 4% rule that we talked about is that it's pretty predictable. You know from the outset how much income you can count on and how much you can spend, and it has built-in inflation protection. Although the income itself is not dependent on investment results, the ultimate success or failure of the plan does depend on how the investments perform. That's why when you use a withdrawal rule like this, we have to invest in income-earning assets like stocks of great companies. You can't invest too much of your assets in bonds, for instance. And you won't know this until late in life, when you've either run out of money or died leaving a sizable estate that you didn't get to spend. The bucket strategy has become a popular approach because it offers inflation protection, flexibility, and potentially more income. In the evolution of retirement income strategies, this is the latest iteration. But that doesn't mean it's easy to set up. It's more complex than it appears because you have to determine how much money goes into each bucket and then choose appropriate investments for each bucket. You have to watch the buckets to be sure the investments are doing what they're supposed to be doing and that the money gets transferred from one bucket to the other bucket at the right time and the right amount. And again, success depends on investment results. I found that there should only be two buckets. One for 3 years of living expenses in retirement, and then the other one for growth in stocks of good companies. But everybody has different circumstances. Some people have special needs. Children, some people have adult parents that they have to take care of, even in retirement. So there are some mitigating circumstances around that, but that is our preference. All of my retirees that we have in the Value Line Partners ships, they use the two-bucket approach. 3 years of living expenses, and the rest are in one of our Value Line portfolios. As you can see, there is no perfect foolproof strategy for generating income out of investment and retirement accounts. But we can help you evaluate the pros and cons in light of your individual situation and help you implement and manage the plan on an ongoing basis. Hey, what about income taxes? Taxes are an important element in your retirement income plan, and it's one of the main reasons why we recommend such a high allocation to stocks of good companies. Because you never pay taxes except on the dividends that you earn, but you never pay taxes on the appreciation until you sell your stock. So we can somehow control the deferral of taxes and increase your total after-tax return. You'll be glad to know we're not going to go into great detail on taxes now, but I want you to make sure that we cover the basics. And I want you to think about that taxes are an important part of your investment strategy, and it's one of the things that we specialize in here. Anyway, Social Security benefits are tax-free unless you have other income and your other income is over a certain amount. In this case, up to 85% of your Social Security benefits may have to be reported as income. I know, people think that Social Security benefits are not taxable, but that is simply not true. Notice I didn't say that your Social Security is taxed at an 85% rate. Only 85% of your income becomes taxable income. That would be a huge chunk of taxes, say 85%. No, there is a formula that determines if your income is high enough that 85% of your benefits, your monthly check, would be subject to taxes at your marginal rate. One way to reduce or avoid this tax is to manage your other income so your total income falls below this threshold. Crazy, right? Pension income is generally taxable, unless some of it is being drawn from an after-tax account. If you elect to take your pension as an annuity, rather than a lump sum, ask your benefits coordinator to explain how it will be taxed. If you end up taking your pension distribution as a lump sum, and if you roll it into an IRA, you have some control over how it's taxed by deciding when you take your distribution. This falls under asset income, which I'll get to in just a minute. You know how income from work is taxed since you've been paying taxes on your earnings for all these years. Income from work is taxed as ordinary income. If you have enough of it, it could cause some of your Social Security benefits to be taxable as well. But the main thing to keep in mind about work is that the government never takes 100% of your money. It always pays to work, even if you lose some of your income to taxes. So not working is not a good strategy for boosting your retirement income if you're able and willing to work. However, you might consider postponing Social Security or reducing your retirement plan withdrawals and saving these resources for later. Sometimes it's best to take just as much income as you need and keep the rest protected from taxes. We'll help you to figure out how to do that. Asset income may be taxed in different ways depending on the type of account the assets are in. If they're in a taxable investment account, you pay tax on investment income as it is earned, not when it's taken out for spending. For example, if you have an account that generates $30,000 in investment returns in 1 year, but you take out only $20,000 for spending, you'll pay taxes on the full $30,000. But later, when you take out the other $10,000, you won't pay taxes on it because that money has already been taxed. In other words, taxation of taxable investment account hinges on investment earnings, not your withdrawals. And remember, investment earnings are only taxed on realized income. So if we let our stock returns accumulate unrealized gains, we don't pay taxes. We defer the tax on that until we sell the investment. Conversely, if your money is in a tax-deferred retirement account, such as an IRA rollover, the investment income is not taxed when it is earned. Rather, you pay taxes on the distributions. So if your IRA earns $30,000 in investment returns and you take out $20,000, you'll pay taxes on the $20,000. These are all important things to know when you're setting up your retirement income plan. Taxes play a huge role in determining the amount and timing of your withdrawals. We can work with your tax advisor to help you draw the income you need with the optimal result. Before we wrap up, I'd like to share the results of a survey that was conducted by MetLife Mature Market Institute. The survey had some pretty grim news about how baby boomers are not doing a very good job of preparing for retirement. But they did identify a number of people they called best case strategists. These people appeared to do everything right to assure a comfortable retirement. So let's look at them. First, they had a sense of self-reliance. They realized that nobody's going to be responsible for their retirement except themselves. Naturally, they have Social Security and maybe some help from their employers. But when it comes to making sure they have enough income to last throughout retirement, they know they're on their own. If this means working a little longer or taking a job in retirement, so be it. The best case strategist thinks about the future all the way till the end. You know, the financial services industry has tended to glamorize retirement. Those attractive silver-haired couples strolling on the beach or, like in this case, out on their sailboat yacht, make it look as if retirement is the end of the line and that you ride off into the sunset. But the reality is that someday you're going to get old. The money you spend today on vacations may someday be needed for nursing care. I don't mean to make you depressed, but it's important to visualize your life all the way till the end. The best case strategist anticipates the unexpected. We talked about this earlier when we asked what surprises life has in store. It's okay to let your imagination run wild if it will help you prepare for the future. Designate a budget column today for a future self. Hey, maybe your future self won't have a mortgage payment. Won't that be great? Maybe your future self will take more vacations than your present self does. So when you're figuring out your income needs in retirement, draw upon your budget as if you are already retired. A best case strategist sets and lives by personal financial rules. You know what you need to do and have a secure retirement, to have a secure retirement. You have to keep saving, manage your investments, and not spend too much too fast. You may have some other rules you'd like to set for yourself. that are more personal in nature. Set your own rules and live by them, and you'll do great. We can't focus on the future if you don't stop and you're doing what you're doing and focus on it. And then talk about it with your spouse, your kids, and your advisors. Part of thinking about the future is engaging in what ifs. And we're not just talking about health crises or major disasters, although that's part of it. When planning for retirement, there are many different scenarios you might consider. But again, I want to caution everybody, this is retirement income planning maybe at stage 2 or stage 3. I don't want anybody to not start thinking about this because you get caught up in all these different what-if scenarios. This what-if scenarios are for planning in more detail. But first, I want everybody to start. So when we start, we just ballpark everything. When planning for retirement, like I said, there's many of different scenarios. So what if you retired next year? What if you took Social Security at 62 versus waiting till later? What if you moved to Costa Rica? What if you got married? This one's for single people only, of course. The only way to imagine these possible scenarios is to ask, what if? I know a lot of people hate math, but there's no getting around it when you are designing a retirement income plan. It's not hard math, mainly addition and subtraction, but you can't do a retirement income plan without numbers. The best case strategist gathers information and seeks advice, and that's why you're listening to me now. I hope you've gathered at least some of the information you came for, and I hope you will take me up on my offer of advice. It can be hard to do a retirement income plan on your own. It doesn't mean you're not self-reliant or you won't do the work you need to do, such as setting a budget, but when it comes to arranging all your accounts and deciding how much to draw from them and when, making sure you don't draw too much and pay too much in taxes, the best case strategist gets some help. You'll want to get your house in order, literally, in case you decide to sell, as well as figuratively. There's no time like the present to get your affairs in order, organize your finances, and figure out where you're going to go from here. Again, get started. Don't think it's so daunting that we shouldn't get started. Here is a list of services we offer in the area of retirement income planning. If you're having a hard time visualizing your future, we'll ask just the right questions to get you thinking about the kind of life you want to lead in retirement. We can help you manage your accounts. Most people at retirement have a bunch of different accounts: taxable investment accounts, IRAs, Roth IRAs, and maybe even an inherited IRA. We can help you coordinate these various accounts and set up a withdrawal program that works for you. We'll also help you manage required minimum distribution. We didn't talk much about these today, but if you have an inherited IRA or if you're over 70 and a half, these are rules about how much you have to take, you're required to take out of IRAs. We'll help you manage these required minimum distributions so you can avoid any penalties. And we can also help with portfolio management, of course. We are experts at that. We offer portfolios of stocks of great companies and other financial products if need be, and we'll recommend the ones that you're suitable for and manage them on an ongoing basis for you. Okay, now that you're filled with all this information and ideas, what should you do next? First, I recommend that you get some books on the softer side of retirement planning, the ones that talk about what to do with the rest of your life. I require that people that I talk to and that take on the idea of managing their retirement investments, I require them to think about the softer side. I want them to understand that their life after their first work could be a different life altogether, one that has more meaning, some things that you didn't get to do but you always wanted to do in retirement, but you always wanted to do when you were working, you could do in retirement. And I want people to seriously think about that. I've had people come in and sit before me and we talk it out, and they thought about it for a couple of days, and then we'd come back and all of a sudden they want to start a retreat, or they want to start a home for disadvantaged children, or some of them want to do some different kind of work. They want to work for a nonprofit and use some of their skills that they learned in business to help one of their pet causes. There's a lot of things that people can think about and can help them lead a more fulfilling life after their work life. So please do that. Next, get all your papers together. Compile all your all your account statements so you know which assets you have and which accounts. Grab your retirement account statement so you know what you have in there. Gather up your credit card statements to use in drawing up a budget. Pull out your latest tax return. It contains a wealth of information that can help with retirement income planning. Gather your insurance policies, including health, life, auto, home, and long-term care if you have one. These will help us determine the amount of protection you have. Find your latest Social Security statement. If you don't have it, go to the Social Security website and run the retirement estimator and write your benefit estimates down. That's www.ssa.gov/estimator again. And finally, pull your estate planning documents together. Your will, your trust document, if you have one, your advance directive for health care. What? You don't have one? At the same time you're working on your retirement income plan, you might as well get all your affairs in order. After all, you really don't know what will happen after you leave. After all, you really don't know what will happen. Make a list of your questions and concerns. Listen to this video again and again if you need to. Make appointments with advisors. Or if you need help just getting started, we can do a 10 to 15 minute retirement income plan. I call it my yellow pad analysis. So in 15 minutes, you can sit with me and I can help you start. There's nothing more important than starting. And so free of charge, I offer people to come in, sit down with me, and talk about how to get started. Because I know it could be daunting just thinking about putting all this information together. And so we can ballpark stuff. We can get started. You can get an idea of of what you need to do. A lot of people don't like to start because they think that they don't have enough money and they don't want to use all the bad news. So we can do is ballpark it, and people can get a handle that they can control things, that it's not too late to start saving some more, and it's not too late to start saving, and that their goals of retirement aren't as unrealistic as they thought. And that is sometimes the obstacle that frees you up to start your more comprehensive plan. So thank you for listening. Here's how you get in touch with me. I look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.